Good morning, everyone. My name is Dharly'm, and today I will present psychological paradigms and applications. In this presentation, I will explain how different psychological paradigms help us understand human behavior, how they can be applied to clinical cases, and why assertive communication is an essential professional skill in psychology. Imagine that the human mind is like a beam of white light. When that light passes through a prism, it separates into different colors. In the same way, each psychological paradigm represents a different lens for understanding human behavior. No single paradigm explains the whole person, but together they provide a more complete perspective. My main argument is that integrating different psychological paradigms leads to a deeper understanding of mental health and more efficient professional practice. First, I will introduce the four psychological paradigms, then I will apply them to two clinical cases. Finally, I will explain the importance of assertive communication in professional psychology. Before analyzing the clinical cases, it is important to understand that each paradigm offers a different way of explaining human behavior. Psychoanalysis focuses on the unconscious mind and childhood experiences. Behaviorism studies observable behavior and the influence of the environment. Gestalt psychology understands the person as a whole and emphasizes present moment awareness. Finally, neuropsychology explains behavior through brain function and cognitive processes. Although each paradigm has a different focus, together they provide a broader understanding of the individual. Let us begin with psychoanalysis. This paradigm was developed by Sigmund Freud and proposed that much of human behavior is influenced by unconscious processes and early life experience. Its main concept include the unconscious mind, repressed drives, defense mechanisms, and the talking core, where dialogue is used to explore internal conflicts. From the Lacanian perspective, autism is understood not simply as a biological deficit, but as a particular subjective position. Overall, psychoanalysis seeks to understand the deeper meaning behind human behavior. Now, let us move to behaviorism. Unlike psychoanalysis, this paradigm focuses on observable behavior and the influence of the environment. Its main representatives were John B. Watson and B.F. Skinner, who demonstrate that behavior can be learned and modified through conditioning and reinforcement. Its key concepts include operant conditioning, reinforcement, shaping, and programming instruction. In other words, behaviorism explains behavior through learning and interaction with the environment. After exploring both paradigms, we can see that they approach human behavior from different perspectives. Psychoanalysis studies the unconscious mind and seeks to understand the symbolic meaning of symptoms through dialogue and interpretation. It contrasts behaviorism, focus on observable behavior, and use conditioning to modify behavior, while psychoanalysis emphasizes self-understanding. Behaviorism aims to produce measurable behavioral change. Although their methods are different, both paradigms have made important contributions to modern psychology. Let us move to Gestalt psychology. This paradigm was developed by Max Bergheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, and Kurt Gofka, and later applied to therapy by Fritz peers. Unlike the previous approaches, Gestalt psychology views the individual as a whole rather than a collection of isolated symptoms. Its main concepts include the here and now play as a communication self-awareness and self-regulation. Overall, Gestalt encourages people to understand their present experience in order to promote personal growth. The final paradigm is neuropsychology. This paradigm studies the relationship between the brain and human behavior. Researchers such as Alexander Luria, Brenda Milner, and Norman Schwechwein demonstrated that main psychological functions depend on brain activity. Therefore, neuropsychology focuses on executive dysfunction, neurochemical correlates, and the role of the prefrontal cortex. It also explains disorders such as ADHD as a neurodevelopmental condition that affect attention, working memory, and other cognitive functions. Overall, this paradigm provides the biological foundation for understanding behavior. Now that we know the four psychological paradigms, we can apply them to real clinical situations. The first case is a 10 years old student who has difficulty focusing, forgets instructions, and struggles to complete school tasks. These symptoms may be associated with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD. The second case is Maria, a university student who has difficulty understanding lectures, feels anxious when speaking in class, and avoids group activities. Her difficulties may be related to learning problems, social anxiety, or executive functioning. These two examples show that the same symptoms can be interpreted from different psychological perspectives. Now we will apply the four paradigms to the first case. From the psychoanalytic perspective, the student's attention difficulties may reflect unconscious emotional conflicts. Behaviorism explains that these behaviors may be maintained by environmental reinforcement in the classroom. Gestalt psychology emphasizes present moment awareness to improve attention and emotional regulation. Finally, neuropsychology interprets these symptoms as possible executive dysfunction associated with ADHD. This case shows that the same problem can have different explanations depending on the psychology perspective. Now, Maria's case. Psychoanalysis suggests that her anxiety may be related to unconscious conflicts or unresolved emotional experience. From the behavioral perspective, avoiding classroom participation may become a reinforced behavior because it temporarily reduces anxiety. Gestalt psychology helps Maria become more aware of her emotion and develop greater self-confidence. Finally, neuropsychology suggests that her difficulties may be related to learning problems or execute dysfunction. Together, this perspective provides a broader understanding of her situation and guide different intervention strategies. So far, we have explored how psychological paradigms help us understand clinical cases. However, effective psychological practice also requires strong communication skill. Assertive communication means expressing thoughts, feelings, and needs clearly, directly, and respectfully. In addition, it promotes a positive work environment, reduces stress and anxiety, increases job satisfaction, and encourages collaborative conflict resolution. In other words, it improves both professional relationship and the quality of psychological practice. A useful tool that complements assertive communication is the Thomas Kuhlman model. This model explains that conflict management depends on balancing assertiveness and cooperation. For example, collaboration represents high level of both qualities and seeks solutions that benefit everyone. Compromise involves mutual conceptions, while competition focus on individual goals with less cooperation. In Maria's case, an assertive response would be to express her needs respectfully, for example, by asking to receive the questions in advance before speaking in class. To conclude, this presentation has shown that the four psychological paradigms offer different but complementary perspectives for understanding human behavior. We have also seen that the same clinical case can be interpreted in different ways depending on the psychological approach, leading to more comprehensive interventions. In addition, assertive communication and the Thomas Kuhlman model remind us that professional skills are just as important as theoretical knowledge in psychological practice. Ultimately, understanding human behavior does not depend on choosing a single paradigm, but on integrating different perspectives to achieve a more complete understanding of the individual. Finally, these are the three reference sources provided as the required material for this presentation. They serve as the foundation for the preparation of both the presentation slide and the oral defense. Thank you for your attention.